Then let me call our meeting to order, the meeting of the Housing and Community Development Committee of November 15th, and declare that we have a quorum. Would somebody please make a motion to suspend the rules so we can meet virtually?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Can we just do it all in favor? All in favor, please say aye. We have to roll call.
Aye.
Roll call. Oh, okay.
Okay. Chair Ravel,
Aye.
Joanne Salome,
Aye.
Monica Bobo,
Aye.
Hugo Rodriguez,
Aye.
Councilmember Hidakaris,
Aye.
and Kathy Feingold.
Aye.
Right, motion passes.
Great. Okay. And then we need another motion to approve the minutes of our October 18th meeting. If I could have a motion.
So moved.
Okay. And a second. That might be you, Juan, because I think the others weren't here, maybe.
I'll second.
Okay. Then we need a roll call.
Chair Ravel,
Aye.
Joanne Salome,
Aye.
Monica Bobo,
Abstain.
Hugo Rodriguez,
Abstain.
Councilmember Hidakaris,
Aye.
and Kathy Feingold.
Abstain.
Okay. So, at this meeting, we have several of committee members who were not able to be with us last month. And so you missed getting an introduction to our new committee member, Councilmember Hidakaris. So if I could just ask you, I guess, everybody to just reintroduce yourselves, or, well, Monica anyway, and Ugo and Kathy. Monica, you want to go first?
I'm Monica. I've been on the committee in 4.5 years, somewhere around there. I live in downtown Evanston, and I work for the Illinois Housing Development Authority. So a lot of affordable housing in my life.
Right. Yeah, Ugo.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you, Juan. Hugo Rodriguez. I have been a resident of Evanston for about 17 years already, and I am a real estate broker in the north side of the city and North Shore for the last 35 years. I have served on this committee under a different format for about 4 years already myself, and I am also board of the Levy Senior Center Foundation in Evanston, and serve also as a volunteer on another board in the city of Chicago.
Okay, and then Kathy.
Hi there. Nice to meet you. My name's Kathy. I started on the Housing and Homelessness Committee. I can't even remember if that was 2 or 3 years ago. And I live in Evanston in Alderman Marvell's ward. And I work for a community development financial institution called LISC and work on a lot of community development lending activities.
Great. And Juan, you wanted to say a few words about yourself?
Sure. I'd like to thank all of you for doing this work. I think I was really happy when an opportunity to join this committee came up, and I'm really looking forward to moving forward affordable housing solutions. And my main kind of passion is to, serve the Evanston community and find out ways to bring more people here and keep Evanstonians here in Evanston. So I really appreciate all the work you folks have done, and look forward to working with you.
Great. Okay. Well, we are off to a good start then. So
I just want to make sure Councilmember Hidakaris knows who I am as well.
I assume he does.
I'm the guy that sits next to you at council.
I know that guy.
Right, exactly. Okay, so on to our business, and our first item is to talk about the renewal of funding to administer our inclusionary housing units, and the organization that's been administering this list for quite some time now is Community Partners for Affordable Housing. And is somebody going to be there? Oh, Marion, you got your hand up. Is there somebody to join us for this?
Yes, there is, but I was wondering, I know that we have the public comments at the end of the agenda this time, but I do know there's a public comment that's interested to make a comment on this, potentially this topic. So I was wondering if you'd be okay with starting with public comment?
Sure, yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay, and I believe we have Tina Payton that has signed up for comment. And then after that, we'll have Doreen Price.
Okay.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, Tina.
Okay, the Landlord Assistance Program. I find it very interesting that you are giving SEPA $50,000 per year to hold a waiting list of inclusionary units. There's only a small amount of units and not many come online per year. But you talk about every year needing units for affordable housing. Inclusionary units are 50 or 60% AMI, while HUD units that I accept are 30% AMI, which includes Section 8, Connections for the Homeless, Catholic Charities, and other programs. You find it more important to give money to an agency to hold a list of names, but you don't seem to find it important to give the providers like me the same ranking. By your actions tonight, you have successfully excluded me again from your measly $15,000 program, which is a slap in the face. With more units selling, like 1612 Sheridan Road, sold for $10.3 million, 43 units will be off the line again. Where do you think the homeless, bankrupt, evicted people will go? They certainly aren't going to the luxury buildings like the Albion, the Link, the Reserve, or E2 that you always put on a pedestal. More money for agencies and no money for the providers. Good luck at finding affordable units at 30% AMI that will accept the programs that you are so searching for. Black landlords matter too. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Doreen Price.
Yes. Ms. Price, you should be able to speak if you unmute yourself.
I don't work. Now I got my gloves off. Okay, sorry, I've been sort of rushed all day. Let's see what I wrote. Okay, has to do, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of just starting back into going to some meetings, including this meeting. And in the past, been advocating for affordable housing and seniors aging in place. So the approval of renewed funding to administer the inclusionary housing waitlist, and then there's attachment. The links weren't working for me, and I just have an iPhone, and I couldn't get them to work. So I'm working sort of what I can surmise, and not necessarily from the facts that are in the documents themselves. So my question has to be, and it's similar to what you're hearing from the small family home renters, which I totally support, and think that more funding is needed per landlord, because the expenses and the ability to help people is going to be dependent upon the help they get themselves. What are the current and future housing and community development programs that will help longtime single-family homeowners provide rental space and or support aging in place? It wasn't that long ago, a couple of years ago, where Sarah Flax announced that there had been grant money, $50,000, so that a homeowner, it was recognized then that homeowners, if they provided rentals, could have a way of staying in Evanston, especially longtime seniors. That vanished in 30 days because there was another project that came up. That's how it happened. So we really don't have a program currently that I'm aware of, and I've been searching all over the place to find help for my situation. And it's become very apparent that these things are coming, but not soon enough. So I really think that it would behoove us to use ARPA funds in an emergency manner to help seniors like myself who are in a predicament in between the old system and the new system, where the new system is going to offer the help, but I need the help sooner than later. And there's other types of, there's specifics that I've written about in terms of helping others as well as myself. So I really would like some consideration, if not renewed discussion and debate about seniors aging in place. The Commission on Aging, I've been told, has not met since 2020. And so what happened to aging in place in the WHO designation? And seniors aging in place in Evanston is an important element of affordability as well, either as a rental, as you know, from the renters, the people who own rental properties as well as opportunity for seniors to age in place with someone living with them actually, and helping them out perhaps in exchange for a cheaper rent. But affordable renting is part of it as well as affordable housing stock that's small and sustainable and built fairly well in the older days. So it's very sturdy, my home being particularly sturdy to a disaster, a flooding disaster, and just trying to get out from that. So there's so many opportunities for climate change to help in terms of seniors, as well as climate change upgrades, which will make them resilient and less susceptible to the inequities involved in triaging, which I experienced myself in terms of trying to get help for my flooding in my home fast enough when I couldn't. So these things do happen, and I'm sort of a textbook example of why there's inequities involved in terms of rescue work as well. So that's why building homes so they're resilient means a lot, not just to the ecology of it all, which is like important, but also to lives and people as well. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Doreen.
Thank you. And we have Councilmember Kelly that is signed up. And if I'm going to ask in the audience, if anybody wants to comment as well, you can raise your hand using the tool at the bottom of your screen. Councilmember Kelly, you should be able to speak.
Great, thank you. Good evening. Thank you so much. So I'm just here to comment on the funding to our local landlords. I hope this starts to happen. I know, as you know, I chair another subcommittee, and out of the gate, I really wanted to do this, but was told that this committee was handling it. So I hope it starts to move forward. A little concerned now that we're at the end of the ARPA funding, how this will be funded. But separate from that, I really want to understand your qualifying factor, like what the metrics that you're using. Seems to me it would make sense to want to fund any local landlord whose majority of their units are affordable and who've been compliant. Like, why wouldn't that be a very simple metric that we would use? We want to encourage local landlords. We want to encourage affordable housing, and obviously being compliant. I don't know why we would make it more restrictive than that. And so I guess I really want to understand why not do that. Fund, have that as an option to any local landlord, again, whose majority of their units are affordable and they've been compliant. It seems to me we want to do everything we can to support landlords who are local and providing affordable housing in a dignified affordable housing. So that's all. I look forward to hearing how this progresses. Thank you all for all your work and commitment.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe with that is the end of our public comment.
Okay. All right. So back to our first item, which is to talk about renewal of funding for community partners for affordable housing. And is someone going to be speaking with us on that?
Yes.
So Amy Kaufman from Community Partner for Affordable Housing is online. There's been some computer issues, so she's actually on the phone. So I'm gonna make her join, and then Anna will be as well.
Okay. And while you're doing that, could someone make a motion so then we actually have it on the floor? A motion to approve a $50,000 contract with SEPA to administer the inclusionary housing wait list.
So moved.
And a second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay. So Amy, are you there?
You might need to unmute, Amy. You know what? I'm going to try to see if I can promote panelist. Nope, I cannot. Okay, let's try again. It might be #6 to unmute. Yeah.
Okay, now there we go.
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, can I go ahead and start, or would you like to start?
Whatever you prefer.
Okay, I'll just give a brief overview, and then if there are any comments or questions, we can go ahead and get to those.
That sounds good.
Okay, so we received the application for renewal for the funding to administer the inclusionary housing waitlist for $50,000. And this is to administer the waitlist and also conduct income certifications, recertifications of households and compliance reviews for affordable units for the upcoming year, which runs from January 1st through December 31st of 2023. $50,000 is a little bit more, $7,000 more than what we brought to the committee last year, which funded $43,000 for a 12-month period. And this is due to three main reasons. One is the increased number of units to service and the associated increased waitlist size. Number two is the addition of compliance reviews for buildings with affordable units that predate the inclusionary housing ordinance and the actual dollars spent in the 2022 contract year, which were $44,000. So SEPA screens the applicants for the wait lists, and also they complete an annual update of data within the wait list. They also conduct outreach to Evanston residents in need of affordable housing. They do income qualifying for prospective tenants and annual income recertifications for those tenants as well. They also make themselves available to meet with city staff and developers and property managers as needed. And they conduct compliance reviews for additional units that predated the inclusionary housing ordinance and units in condo conversions. And they help communicate program requirements to developers and property managers, as well as they give best practices for successful implementation of affordable housing. So for this upcoming year, they will be overseeing 22 new inclusionary housing units, in addition to the 48 existing inclusionary housing units and 34 units that predate the IHO waitlist. Some of those units are being brought into compliance and will be handled like an initial lease up. as well as the growing wait list, which as of November 11th was for 560 households. So this will be for the 12-month period from January 1st to December 31st, like I said. And if the committee has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, and Amy, do you want to say anything about this past year? And
You know, no, only that the program continues to grow. You know, it's wonderful to see it grow and to see it work the way it's supposed to work. And you know, there's a little bit of a mushroom effect, as everybody knows. The more units you add, the more work it creates, not only when it comes on, but in perpetuity, because we do income recertification every year. And then, of course, you know, all of the intangibles that go along with that as well. So with 22 units coming on, that's an appreciable number of additional units. I was surprised when I saw that we were so close last year when we asked for 43 and it turned out to be 44,000. So we were close. So I think we have I think we're hopeful that $50,000 will cover it for this coming year. I'm happy to answer any questions.
yeah, committee, do you have any questions about this? I know Ugo.
Oh, thank you, Chair Rubel. The only question I can think of is if you could tell us where the bulk of these units are within the city of Evanston. And you don't have to give us the whole specific of every unit, but you know, just the bulk are in this ward or this other ward.
So the units are by definition included in larger developments. So where the bulk of the units are in the large. There are some one-off units in smaller developments, but for instance, the Albion development, the Avidor development, those are two large developments that include a significant number of inclusionary units. So that's, I think between them, they have 32 units. Marion, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's 17 and 15. And so that's where, you know, the bulk of the units are. The bulk of the units are associated with some larger development. This past year, there were a couple of units in Truly, which is the new senior development. There's a development at 1515 Ridge, and there were 3 units in there. The ones coming up, I don't have the addresses. Marion would have those, but that's sort of how you can tell where the inclusionary units are located. It's in the big developments that generally in the big developments that were created after the inclusionary housing ordinance was created. So these aren't units that we're going out and purchasing and rehabbing. These are units that are being created by new development or condo conversion development, rehabbing development, something like that.
Okay, thank you. I have a follow-up question to that, Chair Rubel, and it is that is any of these units rented out to students of the university?
No.
Okay, thank you.
And as far as the development that are where the IHO is applicable, it's any development that's more than 5 units, new construction. Usually it could be condo conversion or anything like that, but generally speaking, the vast majority of those developments are new construction, more than 5 units. And so far they've been a lot of the larger buildings. And Ugo, the list of the buildings that are being managed by the IHO waitlist is in the report in the packet. There's a little chart with all the different addresses, and we also use the name of the building.
Now I see it, sorry. Yeah,
that's totally fine. That's a big packet. I just want to make sure that everybody knows in case they're looking for this information.
Sure.
Yeah.
As far as the new buildings, the 22 units, there's one building with 3 IHO units. So it's a smaller building that's coming up. And then including this count, I believe is the 5 units that are coming at the corner of Howard and Chicago Avenue. should be early spring. And then I believe the other building is the 12 units at the Vogue Fabric building. That would be much later in the year, but still based on schedule, I kind of counted towards this year. Some of it is a bit in flux depending on the delays of construction, but it's
the reality is that even if the construction spills over until 2024, the bulk of our work will be in 2023, because you wouldn't wait until you would start marketing and taking applications and building your wait list. And you certainly wouldn't lease it until somebody could see it, but that's often before, it's, there's usually sometimes there's a unit available to see. So a lot of the work will be front loaded. So even if some of the construction spills into 2024, which it might, there'll be a significant amount of work in 2023 leading up to it.
Yep. Okay. Councilmember Harakaris.
Sure. I just had one quick question. So if I did my math right, it sounds like it would be a total of 94 units in the next year that SEPA would be managing. And I saw, like, on the chart, there was the list of the different sizes of the apartments. I'm just curious, and I apologize if it was in the pack and I missed it. How many residents does this program cover?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't have that information in front of me. Typically, studios aren't more than one person. It's very unusual to have more than one person in a studio. Often there's only one person in a one bedroom. Household size is something that is taken into account so that resources are not underutilized. But I don't know what the exact number of people are. And don't forget that household sizes do change. So sometimes you'll lease it to a household of 3, but eventually it'll be at a household of 2 or a household of 4. So it's a little bit dynamic, but we can get you a general, I wouldn't take it to the bank, because you don't exactly ever know until you do income recertification again. But I can get you sort of updated numbers on how many people are in those units.
No worries. I was just curious in general. Yeah. So thank you.
The truth is that as you have larger units available, you'll have more larger households that want those units. So the demand also reflects supply, as well as vice versa. But with, there's a lot of studios and one bedrooms in these inclusionary units, and those are going to be mostly smaller households, obviously.
Okay. Any other questions for Amy?
Chair, I just have one last thing. I just, if staff could just quickly walk us through how to understand the chart and some of I think I see HH1 and HH2. I'm sure we'll get similar charts in the future. So if they wouldn't mind walking us through the information that's presented in the charts in the packet.
Anna, do you want to do that, or otherwise I can take that? Oh, you're on mute.
Can you share your screen? I don't think I can share mine.
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yeah. Yes, we can.
So the household one, so the top chart, and you're correct. This is a report that we provide twice a year. So you'll see it at probably the February meeting. We usually do an update twice a year, July and January, or February, depending on agenda items. So at the top of the information about households on the waste list. So the HH1 to HH7 is the size of the household of 1 through a household of 7. The split by income level, because when we talk about the, I show the income area median income is important. And then you have the total percentage, and then the number of households that have a local preference, that are Evanston residents or Evanston workers. And then at the second chart is the same chart, but as a percentage of the total wait list. So you can see how things are split. And then below that is the unit information. So there's the existing units that are currently being managed. Same thing, split by size of unit and income level with a total. And then the existing units that are in the process of being rented or upcoming for sure in the year. So this is a July report, so we're looking at 2022. And then there's percentage of total units. And then we added demographics of the existing tenants if they've provided their information. That it's not required, but when it's provided, it's in this chart. And then here at the bottom, you have the buildings with the different number of units they have by income levels. And the chart here usually helps us keep track of the current developments that are in the process of being rented up so that you can track how many applicants they received and how many were actually approved or denied by the property manager, and how many were turned down by the tenants, because that also happens that they are eligible, they go see the unit, and then they decide not to rent it up. So that's kind of to track that. And then at the bottom, usually we have kind of a rough estimate of what's upcoming in the pipeline that has been approved for construction. It's 22 and later because we can't tell exactly when they're going to be built or what's going to happen. And then a quick update around activities and outreach.
And so if you could go back to the top. So under HH1, it says next to 31 through 50%, it says 111. What does 111 mean?
That means there's 111 household of one that are within the income of 31 to 50% of AMI that are currently on the wait list.
Oh, this is the wait list. Okay. Okay, that makes sense. As you were talking, I just realized, okay, because I'm thinking 111 and we only have however many in the program. Okay, so that's the wait list.
Right.
Okay, perfect.
So this here is
Thank
wait
you.
list, this is units. So essentially what you're seeing is household of one or two are 64, and that's been a trend that keeps continuing, but it's 64% of our wait list.
It's between 1 and 2?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that probably has to do with available units, right? That
Exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's that was the point I was making before, was that, you know, if you have more larger units, you'll have more people on the waiting list who that's, you know, the way it goes. Because if you're marketing a 1-bedroom unit, that's families of 5 don't apply for a 1-bedroom unit.
And is there are we able to partner with any? I mean, it's quite a big waiting list, and you know, it'd be difficult to you know, find housing for everyone on it. But I'm curious if there's any you know, partnering between organizations to help people find other options while they're on the list.
You mean, do we do sort of no, I mean, we don't really. We do when we have on an individual basis, if somebody comes to us and we think that there's another program that would be better for them, or in addition would be another list that they should get on, we share those resources, but we don't actively try and house people on our waiting list and through other organizations. Okay.
That is all, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. And Councilmember Heracles.
Oh, I just I got some feedback from folks that are attending. If people could state their name before they talk, I think, and make sure you all have. I think it's hard for people to know who's talking. So if you can just say, you know, committee member and then your name, or council member then your name, I think that would help people out.
Yeah, I just talked. So I was Councilmember Burns, Bobby Burns.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah.
You can go ahead, Chair.
And the
Thank you.
one who answered the question was Amy Kaufman from Community Partners for Affordable Housing.
Right, yeah, okay. And Sarah, did you have something to say to us?
Yes, Sarah Flax, City of Evanston. I just wanted to comment that a number of people are referred to the wait list through city staff. And one of the things that we do is we provide the resource list we have of other affordable properties. Understand there are a lot of affordable properties that cannot take people off our wait list because they have wait lists of their own that they are required to have by their financing. But we do things like we did communicate, with there are times we will look to see if there are people on our wait list when a new project comes up, especially if it's something like when the Anne Rainey apartments were renting up. We will do, because those are serving lower income levels who we created a pretty massive list that we referred to them through, that was a combination of people who'd contacted us directly. And, also we referred on to the SEPA wait list, but we also direct to other places. So we try to do that as much as we can. I wish everyone could take everything off of one wait list, but doesn't work with the funding.
All right. Any other questions or comments? I just would say that having this wait list, I know is and the SEPA to help landlords find tenants for their affordable units. I think it's a really good program. I think it provides a lot of it's very reassuring, I think, to the folks who are developing these big buildings and then have these affordable units to know that there's actually a system that's going to be helping them find the right tenants for their property. So I think it's working very nicely. Okay, well then I think, whoops. Okay, I think we're ready for a vote on the motion to recommend approval of a $50,000 contract to SEPA to administer the inclusionary housing wait list for January 1st to December 31st, 2023. Could we have a roll call?
Chair Ravel,
Aye.
Joanne Salome,
Aye.
Monica Bobo,
Hi.
Hugo Rodriguez,
Aye.
Juan Kirakaris,
Aye.
Kathy Feingold,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay. Bye. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
That's okay.
Okay.
So our next item is some further discussion on our small and medium landlord assistance program. And I think maybe to get us started, somebody could make a motion to recommend approval of this landlord assistance program.
Yeah, I will move approval of the proposed landlord assistance program.
And a second.
I'll second.
Great. Okay. So take it away. Presentation time.
Sure. We didn't do slides for this meeting just because we're picking up from the conversation and the memo from last month. Essentially, in your packet is a summary of what we suggested based on your comments from last month, as well as a way to handle a geographic restriction to make sure that we're targeting the most affordable areas of Evanston to have that kind of affordability factor in the program. So based on your feedback, we've lowered the number of units for eligible landlords to be 20 units in total, shared between all properties. If you remember, there were conversations between 20 and 25. So that's always something that can be discussed. It's still 75% of the total income loss between 2019 and 2021. So that's a factor that we're keeping, asking 2 different tax return, and the 75% works well within the ARPA restrictions as well. And then the net income loss is coming from the discussion we've had around making sure that we're doing a comparison in between the gross rent that were perceived as well as potential increased expenses being taken into account. So using the net income would allow to do that. And then the biggest question, I suppose, it's around the affordability requirement. We've provided a map in your packet as far as the census tract that came to be potential, like the highest priority for affordability, and that would be 8092, 810301, and 8102. And that came from looking at, we originally suggested using the low mod income map in our last meeting, which is tracking the census tract that have 51% of or more low or moderate income resident based on census data. But the map was very restrictive and didn't include a lot of the areas. And it also included a very large section that was high student population, which kind of skews the number as far as low moderate income areas. So we looked at different other options, and what we looked at was the Urban Institute tool, the priority index tool that was also used for the housing assistance / rental assistance a couple years ago, that was using CDBG-CV. That's a priority index that was accounting for low moderate income renters, affordability, COVID impacts, negative impact, as well as an equity index. And those 3 tracts came within the Urban Institute ranking as the top ranked highest need tracts, outside of a couple of the tracts that were essentially high student population. The tool was specifically mentioning and calling out that factor, which was interesting. Urban Institute had a specific call out around communities that had a high percent of students, and making sure that to use local factors and local knowledge to use their tool to make prioritization decision around resources, because they knew that that factor could kind of sway a little bit of their index. So essentially, that map is what we're suggesting to use to make sure we're prioritizing specific areas with affordability. It does kind of also line up with the general affordability map as far as median rent in Evanston. So that kind of was laid out pretty well. I'm not sure if there's other question as far as what's being proposed. I'm happy to discuss.
Yeah, that's open for questions. It's a complicated, Councilmember Burns.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've sorted this out. I don't think we have, because we're working on census tracts. But I think one of the concerns is just the desire to want to support landlords who are providing affordable housing, especially naturally occurring affordable housing, no matter where they are, no matter what census tract they're in. I would hate for them not to be eligible just because they're in a non-qualifying census tract. But again, I think it was difficult for us to figure out a way to operationalize that without creating a lot of additional work for staff that we may not have the capacity to do at this time. But I do want to continue to state a concern about that. I would like to, and I plan to make an amendment either to adjust this back to, I think we started off at 30 or 25.
35.
We were at 35 before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm comfortable with either or. I've said this, before in meetings. I was a little under the weather the last meeting, so I didn't speak up as much. But I know that there are landlords that own and manage thousands of units who are eligible for low interest loans and grants because they have so many units. And from a program standpoint, some of these nonprofits, they love working with some of the larger affordable housing providers because they see it as less risky than some of the mom and pop landlords. But also it's they get their numbers up, right? You can get, you can support a building that has 40 or 50 units in it. And so I don't think there's a lot of support for landlords who have anywhere up to 30 or 35 units. I don't think that we will be. I don't think there's enough support for landlords that are within that amount of units, and I think we should. Again, I'm comfortable amending it back to 35 or 30. Happy to hear where everybody else is, but I think we need to trust our initial instincts on that. And that's all for now, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Any discussion on that particular point about whether how big a small landlord should be?
Personally, I'd like to err a little bit on the side of less units. I'd be comfortable sticking at 20, just personally.
Chair
Yeah.
Rivera.
Yeah, we'll go.
Yeah, we had plenty of discussion within the task force in regards to the number of units, and the thought was that the larger the landlord, the more recourses or resources that person has to, or that entity has to minimize their losses at any given point in time. So, the funds on this program are not gigantic. So that's how we had to establish a maximum of $15,000 per applicant. Because the funds are not there to be able to give to everyone who needed the money in 21, which is the year that is the qualifying year for that aid. So, 20 units is, and actually the program, at least the intent of the task force was to benefit more the mom and pop with 2 to 7 units, 2 to 12 units. But in order to be a little bit more open to everyone who, might not have all the recourses available. But if you imagine you have 20 rental units, you most likely have resources to deal with this. So hence the smaller number of units, it comes from that. So we reach the community that might need it the most. The people that live in the building that perhaps have 2 extra rentals in their building, or they inherited a building down the street from their own multi-unit building where they live, and now they have 7 units or 10 units or whatever it is. But we thought that 20 was a good threshold number, a good compromise. So that's why the committee is submitting that number to all of the task force is submitting that number to the committee for that approval. That's basically what I have to say at this point.
And I just I don't see any other hands up. I mean, again, if we're comparing this to large landlords, we literally have property owners that have thousands and hundreds of units in the area. So that's my large. So if that's large, then middle is what, 200-300, and then what's small, right? So that's the first thing. Like I don't think we understand the amount of units that are truly large landlords have in Evanston. And so again, I think 30 is consistent with how a municipality should look at small landlords. That's still a small landlord in comparison to large landlords. I don't know if we've done any research on the amount of grants or different programs that are available to landlords who have 25 and 30 units versus 20 units. I haven't seen any data on that. I haven't seen any pro formas on what it would require, the difference between you know, a landlord that has 20 units versus 30 units, and if there's a material and meaningful difference between the two and their ability to keep up with property taxes, with maintenance for the building, et cetera. So I think we just threw a number out there that felt good. And so all I'm saying is to remain consistent with that, let's you know, I would be fine with 25 or 30 units because all of this is based on instincts. We haven't, you know, done any look at data or pro formas or anything like that to make this determination. So if it's just based off what feels good, you know, I would like to see it bumped up to 25 at the least.
If I can answer to the research, so the 30 to 35 threshold was chosen because the intent that was provided to the task force was small and medium landlords. It wasn't just very small landlords. And Anna did a significant amount of research to try to understand what is, generally speaking, considered small and medium landlord. And that's how the task force discussed that 35 threshold. I will say as well that based on the very minimal information we've received from the survey, the impact, the financial impact, to council members' point, varied widely and wasn't necessarily dependent on the number of the units. And sometimes people that had a very small amount of units didn't have a very big impact, and sometimes they did, and sometimes that people that had larger amount of units saw big impact. It really varies, and the number of units wasn't always a major factor. Although, of course, the financial situation of a small landlord that has one unit that's probably not getting their full income from there versus someone that has 20 or 30 units is a very different situation. And that does play a part in your decision, I'm sure. But I just wanted to provide that context.
Ugo, go ahead.
Thank you. And just to continue the discussion, I would like to ask then, and I'm not versed on the technicalities of how the money is handled or how the money is administered, but if we establish that 20 is our threshold today, and there are monies left that have already been allocated to this program, do we then are able to expand to 20 to 30? And if there are money left after we deal with the 2 or 1 to 20. So I think that might be an approach. I don't think we'll have any money left because we don't have a whole lot of money to work with. And we already heard comments from the public that, you know, they consider $15,000 a measly aid. So that is, you know, it's concerning. And by the way, I wanted to make the comment that I really like the public comments at the beginning, because that has also an impact in our conversation. And if the comments are at the end, then there's nothing we can do about it with those comments. So I'm glad that you allowed the comments early this time again, Chair Ravel. So that's what I would like to, and I don't know, Sarah or Marian can, or Anna can maybe educate us a little bit about how the money can be used if there is any money left. Doesn't necessarily need to go to the city coffers or anything like that, right?
We've considered doing different phases for this program. So if the committee would like to have phases and start with a certain chunk of size of landlord and then open it up to later on to a larger landlord, that's absolutely something we can consider. Of course, that would have to be later release of funds or later applications, but that's a possibility that would just need to be integrated in the final design.
That was not what I intended to make a comment on, though. That will, if I understand it correctly, what you're saying, Marian, is that there'll be different funds for different phases.
No.
Okay.
No, we did that exact same setup for our initial rental assistance that was using CDBG-CV. So the program that was approved had a few different phases, and we started with actually the exact same tracts, because those tracts are the one that are the most in demand, the highly impacted, highest level of low moderate income households and various other impacts. So that we started with that, and then we had a plan to move into phase 2 if there was a need. And that was integrated in the design.
Thank you.
And did we move into the phase 2?
Well, we did, just not as expected, because essentially when we launched the program about a couple months later, so we launched the program in a fairly phased approach and restrictive approach because there was nothing available at the time, and we were concerned to make sure that we were using the money in the most, like we were prioritizing the money essentially. And then what happened is that a very large program launched a couple months later from the state that was a lot more flexible. So it dropped our application drastically. And then we moved to a much broader program later on once they ran out of their funds. So yes, essentially we did, but it wasn't quite the same scenario.
Got it, yeah.
And to respond to Councilmember Burns' questions, the research that we did was using the census tracts from national numbers, and it did indicate that small to medium landlords were from 1 unit to 30 to 35 units. And there isn't much research on any other programs geared towards landlords because it's just not done that prominently, and even less so within the region. The only other program that does this is the city of Chicago, and they don't take into consideration landlord units owned. So it's very hard to find a template. So we had to build this and design this program from scratch using the data that we had, which was again minimal for the survey that we put out.
And again, I want to be clear. I think the research that went behind selecting 30 or 35 units was correct, which is why, I think the one decision that was supported from what I'm hearing on this call and my previous understanding that was supported by data and by research was 1 to 30. And so I'm saying we should stay there. And as a compromise, I'm willing to go to 25. But again, it feels like that was, what was supported by data. This idea that somebody that has, 25 units versus 20 units, that there's a big difference in what they face financially and their ability to cover their costs, especially depending on whether or not they provide naturally occurring affordable housing with no subsidy. So I'm not, I'm talking about people who just price their units affordably because they see themselves as social enterprises trying to make a profit, but also trying to give back. Those 20 units or 25 units are going to bring in less than someone that's trying to, keep the rents as high as they can. So again, I don't know if we know enough to really know who, where to set that number at, which is why I'm saying I think we should trust our initial instincts and the research that was done. And again, either set it back at 30 or 25 as a compromise.
Kathy, you have your hand up.
Thanks. And I'm remiss in that I wasn't at I wasn't able to attend the last meeting, so I missed some of this discussion, and I'm a little confused because it seems, unless I'm mishearing this, it seems like the research and the evidence is showing that up to 35 units is common or standard. And so was there concern last time that was too many and that's why it went down to 20? I'm not fully understanding what transpired, and I apologize.
Yeah. Marion, would you like to?
Sure. Yes, the general feedback from the committee last month was that they wanted to focus on smaller landlords versus small to medium, and that they were more comfortable with 20 to eventually 25 units rather than 35. So that's the reason why we came back with this number.
Sarah?
Thank you. I just wanted to add that one of the things that I think we don't have absolute proof of what sizes of buildings people have, but I do believe that most of the people we are talking about landlords with even up to 35 units are for the most part going to have smaller buildings, because that is the most common naturally occurring affordable housing, if you will. And one of the things about small buildings is you don't necessarily get the efficiencies of larger buildings, just in terms of maintenance and all the other costs. And so that's just another, again, I can't quantify that, but I think that that's a factor too. In, you know, you can have a number of small buildings, but you don't necessarily get the kind of scale that you do when you're in larger buildings.
Yeah. Kathy?
I guess I just want to go on record saying that I would support a larger number of units. I sort of concur with Councilmember Burns.
Okay. Could we hear from a couple more people? We're sort of hearing.
I think Monica is looking to speak, but the little hand is
I'm sorry.
not shown.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, it looked like my hand was raised on my own screen. So kind of comment and a question. I also couldn't attend last month. I would support going up to the 25 or 30 units total rather than sticking with the 20. So apologies, I wasn't here last month to be part of that discussion. And my question is, so I know property owners will frequently, but not always, own different properties by single purpose entities because it greatly mitigates their risk. So if something happens to one building, all of their other buildings are not in trouble. This usually means they can't cross collateralize. So if building one is in financial risk, they can't start taking money from building 2 and building 3 to help out building 1. But what this also means is they technically all have different owners. So how are we making sure that we're actually getting down to the person or maybe not for profit that is in charge of all these maybe different LLCs or limited partnerships, et cetera?
Sure. And that's actually a conversation we've had at great lengths because we want to make sure that the program stays within that spirit. So as of right now, so we've contacted and we're working with the legal team to be able to make sure we can look at the most common non-LLC structures and how to make sure we can include them in the program while making sure there's no kind of double dipping or anything like that, to the best of our abilities. When it comes to the LLC structure, as of right now, the program to be confirmed by the legal counsel we're getting would be by ownership. So one could apply as an owner of 3 different buildings within 3 different LLCs and provides 3 different Schedule Es. But the ownership would be what qualifies as the $15,000. So we're working on how to handle multiple owners of multiple LLCs, multiple owners of one LLC, and all that kind of really fun stuff that's going to come with this program. But that is definitely one of the big part of the kind of design that we're looking at, because it is obviously one thing we want to make sure we can catch.
Very happy to hear that that's already in consideration. If you could also give us an update once that has been resolved. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Okay. Joanne?
Yeah, I mean, last month, I think those of us who are there, I was just shocked that, you know, units, ownerships up to 35 were included, because was thinking of more in the mom and pop type thing. I think that was, you know, a lot of our discussion. I'd be willing to go to the 25, you know, if there's a majority for that, but I'd rather not go to 30 or 35.
Yeah, Ugo again.
Sorry about that, and sorry to have not been present at the last meeting myself. Fortunately for me, I was on vacation, but unfortunately I couldn't attend. So I missed part of the discussion. I had subsequent conversation with both Marion and Anna from our task force. And, you know, one of the reasons we had this conversation at length, I introduced and presented different scenarios to them. They had very good basis to submit to our committee the format in which it was submitted for this phase one, if we would like to. I think that if the case is that mom and pop don't use the entire fund that we have available for this, then other larger landlords will have access to it. My experience with landlords, and I work with landlords all the time, investment properties have been kind of my bread and butter over the years, not lately because there are so many, so few of them left on the market to be transacted on. But over the years I did. And I tell you, somebody who has 30 units, it has way more resources than somebody that has 2 units or 3 units or 7 units. So if the spirit of this is to help the most needy, the one that is also providing affordable housing in the areas where affordable housing is needed the most in our city, I think that the current format of this request is the right one. And then if we need to implement a phase 2, we can do that later. That will be my opinion and my suggestion to maintain it the way it is with 20 units. But, you know, we all have a vote and we'll get there soon.
Right, okay. Yeah, Councilmember Reed.
Yes, thank you. I've been silent. I was on the subcommittee or the task force that was working on this with Ugo. And we, as Ugo said, we did have a lot of back and forth. We originally were at a lower point. You know, I'm happy to go up to the 25 as well. So I think it seems like there may be enough support for a compromise to move up to 25, which meets in the middle of, you know.
Right. That's about what I'm hearing.
I can make a motion, Chair, if you would like.
Okay, yeah, let's have a motion so we can move along.
All right, so yeah, I'll make a motion then to amend this to allow up to 25 units for the landlord assistance program.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so let's have a vote on this amendment to raise the number of buildings, units that would be
the maximum number.
That maximum number, there we go. Raising that from 20 to 25. And I think we need a roll call on this, Anna.
Okay, Chair Ravel,
Aye.
Joanne Salome,
Aye.
Monica Bobo,
Aye.
Hugo Rodriguez,
Aye.
Councilmember Heracariz,
Aye.
Kathy Feingold,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
and Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. So now we have an amended motion to approve the small and medium landlord assistance program. Are there any other aspects of it that we want to discuss, or are we ready for a vote on the overall? Seeing no hands, let's have a roll call on the amended main motion.
Chair Ravel,
Aye.
Joanne Salome,
Aye.
Monica Bobo,
Aye.
Hugo Rodriguez,
Aye.
Councilmember Heracariz,
Aye.
Kathy Feingold,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
and Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Good. Well, thank you very much to our small and medium landlord task force for all your work on this. I think this is a really exciting program. It will go now to City Council. And Sarah, we do still have the ARPA funds that we earmarked for this. Right?
Yes, Yes, what I reported last night, we were looking for 500,000 and I put that on there as committed.
Yeah, we're getting to the bottom of the barrel there. Okay, so we have another big issue to talk about, and this is a renewal of funding for our landlord-tenant services. So would someone make a motion to recommend approval of a $66,735 renewal contract with Metropolitan Tenants Organization and Lawyers Committee for Better Housing?
I'll move approval. Or I will second then.
Okay, great. And do we have someone here to chat with us about this?
Yes, we have John Bartlett from Metropolitan Tenants Organization. Anna's going to be giving a quick overview of this agreement renewal, and then John's going to be there to answer any questions, same way we did with SEPA.
Great. Okay, John, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
All right, so we have the application for renewal of contract for landlord tenant services with the Metropolitan Tenants Organization and the Lawyers Committee for Better Housing. And this is for the upcoming calendar year from January 1st through December 31st of 2023. So they are looking for $66,735 for this renewal of contract. And that includes, I'm sorry, that includes, sorry, I have a really bad cough, so I'm going to drink some water. 1 second. Okay, sorry. So is 46,800 for the base scope of work, and that is 36,800 for MTO and 10,000 for the Lawyers Committee for Better Housing. And this will be distributed on a quarterly basis. Also, this is for operating a free hotline for landlord tenant inquiries, which will be Monday through Friday from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. And they took in some of the comments that were made during the last renewal as far as outreach to the community. So they will restart the in-person counseling at the Evanston Library in partnership with different nonprofit organizations. And they will also be responding to landlord tenant inquiries through the 311 system hotline. And usually that's 30 to 40 cases per month. They will also assist with negotiations and referrals to other sources, letters and different strategies, and also working with the city to maintain the current landlord and tenant information in the cities and MTO's websites. They also will be coordinating at least 2 2-hour trainings for Evanston tenants and landlords. And we have decided that this should be on a quarterly basis. So it would be one per quarter. And also working with property standards to provide at least one training with property standards division. For additional services, they're asking up to $25,000, and this will be on a quarterly basis as incurred. And this will be used for mediation, organizing, and legal representation as needed, and also for the development of a web-based application for client use. So it will be the same mediation, tenant organizing, and legal representation of previous years, but also the $20,000 are for funding of a client-facing web application and development, and this will be kind of like an automated chat service that will be available 24/7 to answer housing rights related questions. And contact information will be provided in order to be able to reach MTO or the lawyers to be able to provide information with further assistance. So again, this is for a 12-month contract and the amount not to exceed $61,800.
I also wanted to add that there will be in this proposal an ability for tenants to reach MTO via text to provide a little bit easier access as well. That was one of the comments that was provided last year. So we're working with them on that. We have also started collaborating closer to use the 311 service better to be able to track responses. If you remember, there was an effort to have a kind of somewhat a way to gauge responses and kind of how the requests were happening through 311. So we're working with them on that and should be able to have something in the next few months, hopefully by middle of next year. And then as far as the web application, it currently exists already in Chicago. So it's just a question of taking what's been done for Chicago and applying it to Evanston. And the $20,000 is an up to amount. So if it's less, great, it's less. But that was to give enough room to make sure that could happen. That's going to take a while because it's a lot of work in making sure that everything is set for Evanston. So the structure itself and the platform exists, but the data and the templates and the letters and the responses and automated response need to be reviewed carefully to make sure that are accurate for Evanston. And that's the bulk of the work. So while this is in this year's proposal, it's probably not going to be something that would launch until the end of the year at the earliest, because it's going to take a while for us to work with them on this. And that is optional.
Okay. And Sarah, you want to say something?
I do, thank you. We also are going to be working on our landlord-tenant ordinance updates. We've combined a lot of different referrals from various council members of important things that we need to address in our landlord-tenant ordinance, in addition to the ones we started working on in 2021. And, you know, so this would be just cause for renewal, adding a just cause clause for renewals, you know, non-renewals and things like that, with looking at different time frames for notice, similar to Chicago and Cook County, a bunch of other things that were really in our ordinance, which hasn't been updated in a very long time. That's kind of out of date in terms of some of the dollar amounts and penalties and things like that, but also things like we talked about doing what Cook County did, getting rid of the interest on security deposits, which is something that landlords just really do not like, because, you know, you have people, you know, we get calls like, my landlord says I'm only getting some tiny little bit of it. That can't be right. And it's like, well, no, it can be right, because, you know, the rate's been like next to nothing. And I don't think even with inflation and the increase in interest rates, it's going to really amount to anything. And it is a real headache for landlords. And so there were a lot of different things like that. We also need to make sure that we reference, whether it's in the ordinance or if it's an attachment, the information on the Just Housing Initiative, because as we have discussed, we have that in our, that's in our Fair Housing Ordinance, but it is implemented through landlord-tenant, you know, relationships. And so we have to make sure that our landlords understand that, and also tenants understand that. And another thing that Cook County did that I think is a very effective thing that we should do as well is do a layperson's summary of what the ordinances are, what our ordinance covers, because I think that, you know, we attach that gazillion page ordinance and I don't think it is as useful to tenants especially, or landlords. So that is something I think we want to make sure that we complete the update before we do a big online thing and have to then change all of the pathways and the letters and all of that stuff. But I think those are very important things that will really have a very significant impact on our tenants and on our landlords too. There are elements of it that will benefit both.
Yep, great, okay. Well, John, would you like to say a few words before we throw it open to the committee?
Well, let me see. I think, I don't know if we shared the map with you or if you've seen the map of where the calls are coming from. So, and that, we have done a little bit of demographic checking, and it is primarily still even people of color that are calling the hotline and using the services. I think, I don't know if you saw that. I think the greatest number of calls that we received were actually about leases and what landlords can and can't put into leases, but we've also included within leases like the notice period that landlords have to give in order to come and inspect or to do repairs, because that tends to be a little bit contentious at times, and also things about parking and other things that come up surprisingly a lot. So that's the biggest thing. The next two are just right neck and neck, are both evictions and repair problems. And I just did want to bring up, because we see different the issues both in Chicago and Evanston and South Cook County and all that. And certainly Evanston has done has a bit lower rate of evictions than other places, in both Chicago and South Cook County. So I guess maybe it means you're doing a good job or getting the resources to the people that need it, because we are seeing, just fewer people calling about evictions and that. So I just wanted to highlight that. And as Sarah mentioned, that we are, maybe it was Marion, sorry, that mentioned about the texting and doing for out of when the hotline's not open, to make sure that it's easier to get a hold of, somebody to call back. So the texting, we hope, will really be able to help a lot of people during when the hotline's not open, and that we can be making calls back then. So, but if people have questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or suggestions. I mean, we don't want to pretend like that there's always ways to improve, and always to make sure that we're looking at helping the renters out.
Yeah, great. Okay, so committee, questions or comments? I think a lot of these things that have just been mentioned in the last few minutes maybe came from Councilmember Burns encouraging us to really see how well the service is helping our residents, and the ease of communicating. So Councilmember Burns, you have your hand up anyway. Go ahead.
Yeah, just want to say thank you to John, because we have since the last time this renewal came up, we've had the ability to partner on two main fronts. One, in trying to working together to mediate landlord and tenant issues, and I concur with what he said, that leases come up a lot, and John knows I've had to call him quite a few times and connected with a few tenants where John's interpretation of what can and cannot be in a lease could be the difference between an all-out civil war between tenants and landlords. I mean, it's that he knows it gets that serious, and so it makes all the difference to, as I said in the last time we talked, like getting a response as quick as we can, because really even a day is too long in some of these situations. And so I absolutely support, I think it's $20,000 to build out, which will, eventually be I'm trying to go back to my notes. Is that going to be a text and chat platform? Is that the right understanding about what?
It'll probably be more email or web-based platform.
Okay, like a chat web-based platform.
Yes.
But I think that's important because there's so many, questions that probably don't necessarily require, any new research. I think it's, John in most cases can answer many of the questions that I've had quickly. It's just having somebody getting that question out there and making that response available in a timely manner. And I think using a chat kind of web-based chat program is a good way to do that. So I fully support that. And then I also wanted to get a better sense of the legal representation that's been provided over the last year. I don't know if that's any information about legal representation is included in the packet, but what types of legal representation have been provided over the last year, and then I guess just trying to get a better sense of what services will be provided. I mean, will an attorney literally represent a tenant in housing court, going through an eviction, or what is the extent of the services provided?
I think for the legal stuff, it's mostly been helping people draft letters and do things pre-court because, right now the Cook County actually has a service right now where everybody gets referred and can get an attorney. So, we're not wanting to double dip on a service that can get paid through another means. So most all the attorney referral stuff, or most of the attorney stuff, is to help tenants pre-eviction, pre-stuff to try to avoid the eviction. I think that's always what our goal is.
Absolutely.
Avoid things.
And
I did want to mention just one of the other things that the web thing would have is just be able to help tenants write letters, because sometimes in a way that is polite, or I don't know. I find sometimes the way sometimes people get into the too contentious right away, and and it's good to communicate and be clear as to what you want, but it's also then good not to, you don't want to create a battlefield in the first letter that when you're communicating right away. And I think that's somewhat what this will also help.
Perfect. And that's all, Chair. Marion, I'll connect with you separately on the survey, and if there's any developments on, because that has to do with MTO, but also has to do with other organizations that we contract with. So I don't want to take up any more time here discussing that. But supportive of renewing this contract with MTO. I think they do a good job. We've been able to get some things done, which is all I care about, is being able to get results, and we've been able to do that. And hopefully, all the other wards are experiencing the same level of support and service, and I'm sure they are. So thank you, John, and the MTO crew.
Yeah, great, thanks. Any other comments or questions from the committee? Then I think we're ready for a roll call on approval of, that's a motion to recommend approval of the renewal contract for MTO and the Lawyers Committee for Better Housing.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Joanne Salome.
Aye.
Monica Bobo.
Aye.
Hugo Rodriguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Heracariz.
Aye.
Kathy Feingold.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
And Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Great, thanks. And thank you, John, for joining us this evening.
Well, thanks. And if you ever we do collect data, and if you ever need, I'm always happy to come in and provide information, about any of if you're considering new, like ordinances or that, always willing to come and share any data and stories that we're getting. So
Right.
Just let me know.
Yeah, well, especially as we work on, updating our landlord-tenant ordinance, we'll probably be in touch.
Great. Fabulous.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is a discussion about our 2023 planning needs and priorities.
Yes, yes, it is. So I'm going to be sharing my screen.
Mhm.
Give me a second. Okay. And I'm working with only one screen this month, so I just need a little minute to get everything situated.
Mhm.
Okay, can you see the updates?
Yes, we can.
PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay, so if you remember, this is an agenda item that we tabled from last month, and we just wanted to have an opportunity for the committee to have some time to review and discuss priorities in preparation for the vote that you will be potentially having next month when we bring to you the 2023 action plan. So this is actually going to be part of the staff report. That's the next agenda item, but the 2023 draft action plan has been posted as of last Friday and is available on the website. You'll be getting an email so you can see what it entails in its current form. We wanted to provide some context here tonight and to prepare for the conversation and discussion for next month. So the 2023 action plan is part of a larger planning process, which involves the consolidated plan. So the action plan is annual, the consolidated plan is 5 years. And the action plan stems from priorities that are established in a consolidated plan. So on your screen right now, the consolidated plan priorities have been set in 2020 and usually include general goals as well as sub priorities within those goals. So we have affordable housing and homelessness, of course, is one of our major priorities, and that includes access to rental housing, maintaining that rental and ownership housing that currently exists in Evanston, as well as improving it. We've talked about it a lot with the one-stop shop as an example. And then potentially home ownership assistance for moderate income household that are facing high cost of housing. And why moderate income is usually because they're within the low moderate income household. They're usually the one that can access home ownership, but have trouble reaching that step. Created within the creating livable community goals, our main goal within the consolidated plan was improving public infrastructures and facilities, as well as nonprofit facilities to improve and revitalize neighborhoods and make sure that we provide an improved service delivery. Public services are one of the priorities within the consolidated plan, but that's usually addressed and prioritized by the social service committee. So we're not going to talk too much about it in this committee. And then economic development is one of the other goal, and usually that entails maintaining and improve economic activity within certain specific low moderate income areas, as well as provide economic opportunities to low moderate income residents, whether it's through workforce development or job training. So that was kind of like at the high level, what is currently within our consolidated plan. And that's to give you context to what we start from when we're working on a draft action plan. As far as consideration for 2023, a few things that we wanted to mention was that we are estimating conservatively the CDBG entitlement, which is a big chunk of the funding that usually is within the action plan. So if you remember from last year's process, the way we work the draft action plan is that we start with an estimate of what we expect the grants to be, because we don't have final numbers, and then we work with specific percentage for each goal. And then once the final number comes through, then we get to update that as needed. But working through percentages means that we have a little bit more flexibility rather than assigning specific dollar amounts. So this year we're having a lower estimate for CDBG, and that's due to some of the trends we've seen with that grant. So we're at 1.65, which is quite a bit lower than previous, not that much lower than previous year, but lower. However, if you remember, you voted on transferring the remaining NSP2 funds to CDBG, I want to say a few months ago, to CDBG program income. It's getting a little technical, but essentially what that means is that for this action plan, we'll see a lower grant for CDBG, but we'll see quite a bit higher program income. So it evens out essentially for this year, even though we would project usually a lower amount, it kind of evens out. The benefit of that is that with higher program income, that means that we have a higher amount of funding possible for public services. Public services, which again is managed by a different committee, is at a cap of 15%, but it includes 50% of the grants, BG grant and program income. So essentially that means that while we were expecting to have lower funds, because we have higher program income, we're able to kind of remain pretty stable because we start from a higher number. And then something to consider as well when you're thinking about priorities and priorities for and needs for the action plan for 2023 is that it doesn't necessarily include CDBG CV. We reported it in some of the narrative, but the number specifically and fundings and allocation does not include CDBG CV. And we continue to use CDBG to respond to COVID-19. And that includes addressing homeless needs, food needs, health and mental health services, and housing assistance. So we do have a funding request that's going to City Council for the food pantry and food needs, as well as homeless needs. And then we are going to be looking at addressing mental health, as well as there's some remaining fund for housing assistance, and we're studying whether that can be expended or not, depending on the program restriction. It's a few things. And then some more additional considerations for you. When we talk about the livable communities goal, if you remember a few months ago, we talked about allocating about $250,000 of CDBG for the nonprofit facilities improvement applications. Now, we were expecting those applications to open later this year. With the volume of work we're dealing with right now, it's been postponed a little bit, and it's going to open probably in 2023 instead. But that funding has been set aside from previous years. So there is, when you're looking at 2023 funding, it's good to remember that there is some funds that were set aside for nonprofit facilities improvement. The other thing to remember as well is that there's a new grant program that's coming from the state of Illinois, the Human Services Capital Investment Grant, that is also targeting nonprofit human services providers for capital improvements. So it's kind of similar. And the awards will range between $50,000 and $250,000. So that's on top of what we've set aside as well for this year for nonprofit facilities improvement. For the public facilities/infrastructure part of that goal, a couple months ago, you voted to approve 2 different alley projects for 2023, and that included the living room alley on Elmwood, I believe, and the Linden Custer Alley, which was estimated to be about $460,000. So there'll be additional funding that will be part of that general goal that you'll see in the action plan. That, you know, and applications will be coming to the December meeting. So that's something to keep in mind. Within that goal, there's $460,000 that could potentially be allocated to those 2 alleys that you prioritized so far. When it comes to the affordable housing goal, there's a potential conversation to be had around how we want to prioritize housing rehab funding between rental versus ownership. And whether there's any kind of feedback the committee would like to provide there. And then there's a new project that'll be coming in probably in January. There's the HVDC project for 44 units of affordable housing. That's not specified in the action plan in its current state because that project has not currently been approved, but that's in the works. So when we're talking about new units, there's not a lot of concrete data or information there, but that is that one project that's in the works. And I'll probably include funding that could come from different sources, such as home, affordable housing fund, as well as potential TIF funding if there's approval for that. And that is it for my general update. So the point of this time was to just really give the committee some opportunity to be able to discuss general priorities or kind of how they fell within the action plan and consolidated plan.
Yeah, Councilmember Burns.
I was just gonna say, would you mind giving us a few prompts, just ways to think about this and just direct questions that we can respond to?
Sure. One of the ones would be the housing rehab question that I just touched on quickly, trying to understand whether we have a certain amount of fundings and understanding whether there's any desire to focus the program around rental versus ownership when it comes to housing rehab would be interesting to know.
And what has it been typically?
So typically, we've seen a much higher percentage of applications and projects being done by homeowners. We do have one application that's gone through recently for a 2-flat rental unit. So that'll be showing up in 2023. But usually our goals have been for a considered plan to be about 25%, if I remember correctly. I want to say 20% rental and about 80% ownership.
And when it's ownership, it's typically single family ownership, or?
No, not necessarily. It can be a condo as well. It's for a low moderate income household. So you have to think about what kind of type of ownership opportunity there is in Evanston for those kind of households. So it can be a condo that would be, that's considered.
That is single family. I think that one of the interesting things we get is a fair number of 2-flats that are owner occupied. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that, because CDBG only has to have 1 unit occupied by an income eligible household, those are usually qualified on the owner, which is also, most of the time, these are properties that are offering really quite affordable rents, but it doesn't limit, them to having to have both their unit affordable to the same levels if they need and are able to make income to help themselves stay in their home. So that's an interesting thing we're going to have to kind of look at. In many cases, we've found historically that they are still renting at, approximately in the fair market rent area. So they're providing naturally occurring affordable housing, but we'll see if we see any changes of that. And then we also hope to know whether SEPA is getting additional funding through IDA through their they combined the owner occupied rehab and the accessibility grant into one, and I can't remember what they call it now, but that is because one of the things we talked about is we want to see if we can move to forgivable loans, if we can have access to enough funding to be able to do that and help people build equity in addition to maintain their properties.
And that's what I was going to bring up is I think we personally would like to see us continue, supporting, ownership through the CDBG program. I would imagine most of the rental rehab would be working with landlords, right? And we've just passed the landlord financial assistance program, albeit it's not likely nearly enough, but it's what we can do. But I think we definitely need to continue to focus on homeowners who are challenged and have who have needs. We did discuss you briefly just mentioned it, the going from a CDBG rehab loan to some type of forgivable loan or grant. That came up for discussion at a previous meeting. I'm not sure it's come back up, but I'd like that to, do we know when we're going to bring that back so we can continue the discussion around it?
We hope to bring it back in December. We just have to, we want to make sure that SEPA has access to additional funding, because right now the owner-occupied rehab program, the IDA program, is a forgivable loan. It is up to $40,000. CDBG goes up to 50 right now, but there are a handful of things that the IDA program doesn't cover. For example, it won't do owner-occupied 2 flats, I don't believe, and it won't work for anybody whose house property is in a trust. And we've talked about that as being something that can be. So I think the key thing is to make sure that we have enough funding and expect a continued supply of it, that we don't run out, because if we move away from having most of our loans, actually virtually all of our loans now are deferred, so that the owners pay no rent, don't pay any debt service, not even principal payments. But at the same time, we also want to be able to support equity, maintaining equity for our lower income property owners.
And so just so I'm clear, is SEPA applying for a grant or some type of funding from IDA? Okay.
Yes. And they've received it in the past. And so I think they have a very good chance of IDA. I think generally works consistently with the providers that continue to provide programs, be able to implement their programs. But we just want to be sure. And that way, that would give us we would hopefully then shortly, in the new year, be able to start offering forgivable loans.
And do they plan on setting aside a portion for Evanston? Are we going in on this grant with them, or how is that? How is that?
Evanston is one of their service area communities, and that's worked so far.
Do you know how much it's amounted to for Evanston in the past?
For this time. And I believe they have some flexibility in how much they spend in each community. It's not you must do this much in absolutely a single one. So, but we will make sure that we have all that information for you.
All right, I think that was the first prompt: rehab versus rental versus home ownership. Rehab needs for rental versus home ownership. That's all I have. I don't know if anybody else has any comments, Chair, about that.
So is the committee comfortable with the sort of traditional 20%, 80%, I guess is what, Sarah, you were saying, for 20% of, helping rental units, rental rehab, and the other 80% home ownership, rental rehab, home ownership rehab.
And this is basically where we get applications from a lot of times. It isn't, so, and I think that there is a strong need for homeowners, because we know especially our older homeowners who are living on fixed incomes are having trouble maintaining. And one of the things that we do in rehabs sometimes, as well as, just rehab work that is needed, is accessibility features. And that's one of the things that the IDA grant stresses as well. Those are the types of things that I think we are looking to help seniors.
And Chair, the 80-20 that you mentioned is 80, how we've been doing it, 80%.
Home ownership.
Home ownership
tends to be a much larger.
And are we using the funds? Do we find, ourselves at the end of the year not using it all because maybe we don't have the staff to to go out and administer the program.
I think we still are getting back fully on track after COVID because COVID shut us down completely. And then because SEPA was implementing the reparations rehabs, and that was part of their, that also cut into their capacity a bit, but we were not going to try to pull them off that at the moment. And so we will get our CDBG. We used to be doing someplace in the neighborhood of maybe 12 unit rehabs in a year. We also have the one-stop shop that's going to be kicking off, and that isn't going to be focused on, and that's a pilot, but it will, there will be a number of units that ultimately will be rehabbed through that. And hopefully that will also help us start looking at ways to get even more other sources of money for rehabs, because that's another goal of that program. So we got a bunch of different things working on that we hope will really start getting some traction on, because I think that's going to be an ongoing challenge for us is keeping up with housing rehab.
Yeah, so I certainly support 80-20 continuing on with that. I don't know where everybody else is at, but support that.
Joanne, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say I'd like to continue the 80-20 because Sarah told me, in the past about some of the rehabs that have been needed and for single family elderly, and we want to keep people in their homes if we can.
Right. Yep. Are there other key issues that we ought to talk about, or Marian?
No, there's really, this was more meant to be a little bit of an open forum. Sometimes we have very, very full agendas. So we just want to make sure that as we go into our planning, that we give you opportunity and context about what we're going to present next month.
Great. Okay. Well, we'll look forward to more discussion next month then.
I was waiting for the additional prompt, but I did want to quickly talk about HODC. I think we, there is money in the West Evanston, TIF there is money in the West Evanston TIF, and it's bringing in, a decent amount of increment on an annual basis. I think the concern is that it's now an expiring TIF. It will expire in the next 6 to 7 years. And it's still a large TIF that we need to redevelop a lot of different sites that are part of that old defunct railway. And I think we are going to need to combine funds in order to support HODC with their requests. I think they're requesting $4 million in local funds, and but they're also getting a lot of money from the from the LIHTC program. So it's not like, I don't know what percentage. Sarah, do you know what percentage that 4 million would make up?
I think it's probably about a $15 or $16 million project. Honestly, I would have to look at the most recent pro forma.
That sounds right, though. Yeah, that sounds right. So, a good chunk of it is they're getting through the LIHTC program. And, but, is always the case with these affordable housing projects, especially, affordable housing projects, they're going to need some local funds as well. But again, I don't think we're going to be able to do it all through TIF. And so I just wanted to also flag that it would be great to combine funds with some of these other, with Home Fund and what's AH? Is that the Affordable Housing Fund? Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just one other thing is the TIF would support any of the financial need for there is ground floor retail. So it's a mixed, it's got, it's a mixed use building.
Yeah.
So
We got two-store, as it's proposed, there's two storefronts that they're looking at putting in. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Great. Okay, well then let's move on to, I guess we need to nominate and elect a vice chair. And Kathy's been admirable vice chair this past year. If Kathy, you'd like to continue, or anybody else would like to raise their hand? This is very informal.
Yes, I believe that Kathy has been nominated by at least one committee member.
Oh, excellent.
And she has shared that she'd be willing to continue as vice chair if there's a desire for the committee to continue so, but we're open to hear anybody that would like to nominate someone or nominate themselves.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm willing to support whoever is nominated.
Okay. So can we just do a voice vote for this one?
We have to do a roll call, but I think we need a motion first.
Okay, well,
I move that Kathy is renominated or reappointed as the vice chair of this committee.
Thank you.
Second.
Great. Okay, then a roll call, please.
Councilmember Ravel,
Aye.
Joanne Salome,
Aye.
Monica Bobo,
Aye.
Hugo Rodriguez,
Aye.
Councilmember Heracariz,
Aye.
Kathy Feingold,
Aye.
Councilmember Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. It's the easiest job I've ever had.
Right.
Never had to do it once.
Well, we'll see what happens this year.
Yeah. I wish you the best of health and going forward.
And then our last item is a staff report. What
Sure.
was-
I actually covered already. It's a very quick staff report because we wanted to make sure that the committee was aware that the draft action plan was posted on the website. Anna, I believe, was going to link it into the chat just for everybody to be aware where it's at. You will be getting an email and it will be also included in the packet next month. But if you want a little extra time to review this document, you'll have some extra time because we'll share it. So essentially, this is the staff report for us today. Sarah, I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to add.
I just want to note, remember that this is the draft that we have to write and post for the 30-day public comment period and have a meeting at which, public comment is solicited. So that'll be our December meeting. And we have to do this so that, because we will not have our grant amounts in time for the start of our fiscal year, but this is what we have to do in order to be able to put funding back to the start of our fiscal year. So it's kind of that lovely drill. So it'll be like, well, this is what it is. And if we get more funding, this is what we do. And if we get less funding, so it is not really the most insightful document in the world, but we do have to do it. So
we do what we have to do.
That's right. We do what we have to do. So that's our Congress is operating, our government is operating on a continuing resolution until December 16th. Cross our fingers and hope they'll have a budget. It would be surprising if they actually had passed budget and appropriations before the first of the year. Monica's making faces. It is, right? When do you think? It's always hard to know when anything's going to be passed, but it allows us to keep some continuity of our programming and our work. So
great. Yeah. Okay. Well, then I think we've covered all the items on our agenda, and remind you that in December, normally we meet the third Tuesday of the month, but in December, we're just meeting on the second Tuesday, which is December 13th. So that'll be our next gathering. And so I declare us adjourned. So thank you very much, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Right.
Happy
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.